Hello, test mic. Hello, hello, hello. I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is award-winning and best-selling author, no other than Ms. Raven Oak.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Raven, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. My name is Raven Oak. I'm a Pacific Northwest author. I'm also an artist. I'm a geek. I am part of the queer community and an advocate for disabled people because I'm also a disabled author. I love making maps as well as books, and I have 3 kitties, one of which is sitting to the left of me and may or may not walk across the keyboard as we're talking.
Miss Raven Oak, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. Thank you so much. So, what's inspired you to start writing, and how it is shape your journey to become an award-winning author?
Well, I think writing started as a way to explain to other people what was happening in the world around me. I started writing when I was very, very young. I was probably about 5 when I started telling people I was going to grow up to be an author. And for me, if I tore my shirt rescuing a cat from a tree, it was this grandiose adventure, and I was the hero and rescued this cat and fought monsters, and that's how my shirt really got torn. And so I tell people I'm paid to lie, and that's kind of how it started. Was me trying to tell my parents, "Hey, this didn't really happen the way you think. It wasn't my fault. It was really this monster," and it just kind of evolved from there.
Yes. So, how did you feel when you received your first writing award?
It was pretty cool. I won't lie. Having other people recognize that you have done something of worth, having enough readers read something to consider nominating you for something, it's it's quite big. And I try not to think of it too often just because, I don't want to get a big head about anything, but it definitely is nice.
Definitely. Is it a validation?
It is.
It is, yes. People, I forgot in my intro that Miss Ravenoak is my feature author of the month of February. So I want to apologize for that. She is with me for 4 episodes. And please do tune in for my feature author of the month of January. Of course, award winning and best selling author too, Mr. Hurry Turtle Dub. We're going to do our second episode this coming Monday. So please tune in, people. So, Miss Raven, how do you believe sets your work apart from other authors in your genre?
One of the things that I try to focus on is representation. We have a lot of fiction out there, particularly in the science fiction and fantasy world, that focuses on the white male protagonist. And so I try to do my best to do things like have characters that are queer, having characters that are disabled, having characters that are, a little more like me and a little less like what has been the standard for the past, hundreds of years. But I also feel that my works focus fairly heavily on characters because you can have all of the fancy world creation you want. You can have all of the space and the science that you want. But if you don't have a character people can relate to or care about, there's no story.
Certainly. What role does discipline and routine play in your success as a writer?
Oof, that's a hard one. Particularly because I used to have a much more disciplined uh, regiment that I did. Every day I would get up and I would spend a certain number of hours writing and editing, revising. And then I would hit a word count and my day would end. And so for me, writing is something I do full time. But with COVID, I did get long COVID. And so I do have some medical issues that have popped up with developing COVID that have made me more disabled and have made it harder for me to fit into the schedule that I used to keep. I now have to reinvent that schedule and be more forgiving of myself if I don't meet certain benchmarks that I used to be able to meet. And so I'm a little more flexible, I guess. I still am trying my best to have a, write or work on something writing related every day. But again, I'm more forgiving when I don't hit that goal.
Certainly. So, how do you handle criticism or rejection in the writing and publishing process?
You know, I have met many editors that work for Tor and, some of the larger publishers. Some of them I consider friends even. And I've learned in meeting these people that what some editor likes is so different from editor to editor. You can have an editor who loves a certain subgenre, a certain flavor of story, and maybe they don't like yours. That doesn't mean your story is not good. It just doesn't fit with what they're looking for or what they enjoy. In the same way that, everybody likes different types of music, everybody likes different types of stories. And so I actually don't let it bother me that much. If I submit a short story for publication and it doesn't get picked up, it doesn't get picked up. It'll find a home somewhere else. I just, keep trying and it'll happen.
Yes, try and try until you succeed.
Exactly.
So, what strategies do you use to make your stories resonate with readers?
What tragedies? Um,
Strategies.
strategies. Okay.
Yes.
I was gonna say that's a whole different question there with tragedies, isn't it?
Yes.
Strategies.
Used to
You know,
make your stories resonate.
yeah. So for me, again, it comes back to character. If I write the kind of character that I want to read, there's somebody else out there who wants to read that too. And so if I am authentic with my characters, if I set out and go, okay, my characters need to be realistic. They're not perfect. They need to have flaws. They need to, forget to brush their teeth some morning or whatever. But they also need to have um, their own traumas. Everybody carries trauma from something. And so they need to have all of the things that make us human in them. And so even if I'm writing something that's science fiction, and let's say I'm writing something from an alien perspective, I mean, obviously aliens aren't humans, but they still need to have some kernel of something that humanity can identify with. So that again, we're drawn to that character and finding out, oh, what happens to that character next? I fell in love with this character and, I want to see where they go. It's all about that development that makes things I think resonate for readers.
Certainly. What challenges did you face on your path to becoming an award winning author, and how did you overcome them?
I think finding time to write before I was a full time author was definitely a struggle. I know a lot of people who, have day jobs other than writing. And then they get home, they have kids to worry about, they have to make a meal for themselves or others. There are all the normal life things that get in the way. And so then it becomes, how do I find time to write? How do I do that? And for me, I used to take, I always take scratch pads with me everywhere. There's always scraps of paper in my purse or something. Um, I could be sitting at a traffic light at a red light and making a voice recording on my phone of some story idea, or I could be sitting there in a meeting and scribbling little notes on the side of in my notebook of some story idea, or oh hey, that's a really good plot twist right there that I just now thought of, kind of thing. um, Always keep supplies with you to help you write, so that when you have those moments that you can steal them. Make sure that you're trying to work in that time, because if you do not make the time, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, you'll never finish something. You'll never write something. But even 10 minutes a day, let's say you write 500 words. By the end of the year, you have a novel.
Definitely. So, how do you balance creativity with the technical aspects of writing?
Well, I'm really lucky that I am of the generation that grew up when computers were just coming into the home and the internet didn't really exist yet. And so I got to see the evolution of technology, which means that using technology is not it's not a hindrance for me. It's not a pain in the butt. It's something I just do. Um, in terms of balancing the creativity, it's just the technology is a part of that. So I use a particular program called Scrivener, which allows me to keep all of my notes and character sketches and anything related to a series in one file. So I'm not trying to open a whole bunch of files to find things. And it has a lot of ways to use like keywords and meta tags and all the technical stuff. Um, but by using that and making it a part of my writing process rather than something to fight against, um, I think it allows me to have more space for creativity.
So, Miss Raven, what advice would you give to aspiring authors looking to win their first writing award?
Don't worry so much about the award. Write, 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 write. Put your stuff out there. If traditional publishing isn't working for you, look into self-publishing or look at small press. There are a lot of small presses out there that will publish works. So you can be a hybrid. You have a lot of different paths of publication. Focus on getting your work out there and getting it in front of readers. And if your stuff is good, then awards will happen. If you focus on, I want to write so I can win an award, it's probably not going to happen very quickly.
Yes, it's a process, people. Very well said, Miss Raven. Very well said. And stop procrastinating, people. If you have the passion to write, write. Don't procrastinate, please.
Most writers I know, we write because we have to. Like, there is no just, oh, I'm going to stop being a writer. Even if I decided I didn't want any more books published, I would still be telling stories. My brain can't not. It's just what happens.
Yes. Share to the world, people. Who knows you will be a Raven Oak in the making. So please share your stories to the world. So, Miss Raven, how do you stay motivated and inspired to keep writing after achieving success?
Um, you know, there's never a I've reached this pinnacle and I'm done stage for me. Like we were just saying about most writers, we can't help but write. We have to keep writing. And so for me, staying motivated, it's more of a I have to tell the stories that are popping into my head. It's not really a choice. And so I think what tends to hurt my motivation isn't so much that I've won an award or I've been a bestseller. It's more of the things going on in the world around me. When I'm thinking about climate change, when I'm thinking about the political stuff that's going on in the United States right now, that then becomes a wow. Why does this matter? Why does my story matter when all of this is going on? This is so big. Um, but part of how we as a species have survived and persevered through moments like this is through our creativity. There are so many artists and writers and storytellers and movie makers and so on who have created these amazing works amidst horrible things because that's how we survive. That's how we resist. That's how we overcome. So sometimes I get up in the morning and I'm like, wow, this feels like a lot. And then I think about how much my stories mean to somebody else. And it's like, okay, this is what I need to be doing.
Definitely. My passion to write and write and write. So, what is your process for editing and refining your work before submission?
Yeah, so I tend to I tend to start works with something I call a zero draft, which is kind of like a really long outline. And so instead of having an outline that's very, first this happens, then this happens, I'll have those moments, and then I'll add things like bits of dialogue that pop into my head as I'm trying to come up with the outline, or scenes. I'll have descriptions of setting or world building. I tend to end up with an outline that's more like 30,000 words. So, like I said, kind of a long outline. I go through, write the draft in its actual first draft, and then when I'm doing editing and revising, one of the things that I look at is I look at tension. I look at, does every scene have a sequel, meaning a reaction? So if we have, part A is, you know, this goat falls off a cliff, then the next scene needs to be a response to that. How does the goat feel about falling off the cliff? Is he still alive? Or if the point of view character is somebody else over here, what do they think about the fact that that goat just fell off the cliff? There needs to be an emotional and potentially a physical response to what happened. Then you end up, after this guy falls off a cliff, let's say he lives, but he breaks a leg, his new goal may not be running a race anymore. Or maybe, now it's, I need to figure out how to walk again. So that's my new goal. And then something happens, and then there's a response to that. And so if you go through and you think about everything as, something happening and a response to that, you tend to have good tension. I go through and I check for all of that through all of my scenes. And so sometimes that means, oh, this scene over here moves over here, or hey, this doesn't really have a response. I need to fix that. Or this response is really weak. Do I even need that scene? And that allows me to start going through and cutting and adding until I have a much stronger story. Then I go through and I start looking at things like, do I have strong verbs? Do I have good word choice? Do I am I having grammatical issues? Is this clear? Is this unclear? I start looking through the mechanics and the grammar and the things of that nature until I finally have something I feel is polished enough that then it goes off to whatever editor.
So, Miss Raven, how has a winning awards impacted your career as an author?
I think that it opened doors and allowed for other opportunities I might not have had. And so if some work of mine has won an award, then other editors may have heard of it, which then means that, if they're putting together an anthology or some other project, they may think of me and go, hey, we should get Raven to do this, or we should, have her story over here in this thing. And so it opens those kinds of doors for an author, because more people have heard of you and are familiar with your work.
Definitely. So, how do you believe is the key to writing stories that stand out in the competitions?
I know I keep harping on character, but I keep wanting to harp on character. If you have relatable characters that people feel could be them, that's the answer to everything. Because the setting and what happens to your characters, all of those change based on the genre, and those are all the same. I mean, there's only so many stories you can tell in a spaceship. There's only so many stories you can tell in some fantasy land. I mean, to some degree, the stories have all been told. What makes it different is the characters, how they see things, how they feel things, their reactions to things. Those individual characters, those are the only things you come up with that tend to be unique.
So, Miss Raven, how do you manage the pressure and expectations that come out with being an award winning author?
I try not to think too hard about it because it can put a lot of pressure on a writer to be like, oh gosh, um, I just won an award for this book and now I have to like top that. There's this expectation that, your next work will be even better. Um, but I will say that sometimes I do struggle with that. I know that um, my two of my books in the particular trilogy I'm trying to finish right now have done very well. They have won awards. So people are expecting the end of this trilogy to be brilliant. It's the last book of the trilogy. It's in the same series, kind of thing. But um, all I can do is my best.
Definitely. The best of the best. So, Miss Raven, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
Short term goals right now is I have 5 books that are in revision mode that are almost done. I would like to finish that and get them out there because I know they were supposed to have come out a couple years ago and then I got long COVID. So everything kind of got delayed and pushed. I know fans are like chomping at the bit to um, hurry up and get these books. So I want to finish that. Long-term goals, you know, I, I would like to win a more prestigious award, like winning something like a Nebula or Hugo. Um, that would be a lot of fun. I think long term, just tell all the stories I can and just keep putting things out there for the world to digest.
Definitely. I think Mr. Harry won 3 times for the Hugo, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
So, how do you define success as an author beyond winning awards?
If you put a story out there that is the only story you like, only you can tell that story. It's a unique piece of yourself, and people have read it and enjoyed it. That's success. I think some people define success based on finances. Some people are like, I need to be able to pay off my mortgage or I need to be able to pay off my bills. And that's totally acceptable and valid. Um, for me, it's just about existing and having my stories out there and read and enjoyed.
Certainly. So, what awards have meant the most to you and why?
Um, you know, I really, really appreciate and love the fact that my several of my novels have been a UK Wishing Award finalist. They haven't won, but they've been a finalist on that one. It means the most to me because that particular award in the UK, um, they the award is the nominations and the voting is all done by like actual readers and K through 12 school kids. So if you win an award or are a finalist on that award, it's not like some, rich person over here in the corner voted or some editor over here voted. This was actual readers who voted and nominated, and that means more to me, I think.
Yes, it validates that
Mm.
you are one of the best. So, Miss Raven, to wrap up our discussion for today, what's next for you in your writing journey, and how do you plan to continue evolving as an author and
Well,
gain by the end of the book?
yeah, so I mean, right now I've got, like I said, I've got those 5 books that are pretty close to being ready to come out. So I'm just working towards that. I mentioned before that I'm also an artist. I've been hired to do some cover art, and so I'm doing a little more work towards not just writing the stories inside the in between the pages, but making pretty art for in between the pages and art for the cover of it. And I love the idea that my work can be out there and multifaceted and in multiple ways. To me, that's a lot of fun, and so I will keep doing those things, and hopefully, people will just keep reading. And
Definitely. Can you be my guest also on Abstract Essay? I'm featuring artists
sure,
like you. And if my book 101 review is number 3 best art book podcast, my abstract essay is number 1 best abstract podcast. So I'm inviting
Nice.
you there too, you know. Let's promote your book over there or your books over there. So, Miss Raven Oak, my feature author of the month of February, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Sure. You can find me over at ravenoak.net. You can also find my books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the various bookstores internationally. You can find me on a variety of social media. All the links are on my website as well. And so I look forward to meeting some new readers and new listeners.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Raven Oak because if you support her, more award-winning piece to come. So, Miss Raven, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Morticon people, see you soon.